No, I didn't.
What the oh,
sorry.
God.
Sorry.
This is a mess.
Well, you know what?
It's show canceled. Show canceled. Hello and welcome. I'm Michael.
I'm Brandon.
And let's get the show on the road.
Let's do it.
Alright, so we just saw Infinity War. The
Part 1.
fourth? Well, they're naming the next one something else. Is it
That is true.
Third Avengers movie or the fourth
This would
Avengers
be the
movie?
third one.
Third one. Alright.
The beginning of the end, so to speak, of phase, really the first major compilation of
Yes.
all the Marvel movies.
Yes.
I am a huge Marvel fan.
I have never touched a comic.
Yep. I've read a lot of comics. I've read this one myself, so that kind of changed a lot about how I went in expecting this movie. Before we get into this, obviously a giant spoiler alert.
Oh, yes. We should probably start with that. There will be spoilers in
this. We are going to go hard into this. If for some reason you haven't seen it or you're living under a rock,
don't
hit back and...
Don't watch this.
Yeah, hit
Come
back.
back after you see the movie.
Yep, hit back and go to whatever Michelle Wolf critique video is going on right now because everyone's mad about the White House Correspondents' dinner or whatever.
Yeah.
Topical events. Anyway.
Topical.
So the premise of this one is, as we know, Thanos, Josh Brolin Thanos does not have all the Infinity Stones yet, but he's still trying to get them. So this one is all about him getting to the height of his power, getting all the stones.
Which reminds me, at what point, remind me when he got the Power Stone.
The Power Stone. That is the purple one?
Yeah, he got it. I believe it was in an after post-credit scene where he meets up with Claire. That's because Collector didn't have the purple one anymore.
No, he had the red one. I thought this was, a very well-made movie. I thought it was a giant undertaking when you think about it. I mean, for how many directors and director teams the Marvel Universe has tried out, I would say that the Russo brothers are my favorite. They've done my favorite movies. So for them to take that over, but as I was watching it, I was realizing, oh crap, they have to write Taika Waititi's kind of quick humor.
Taika.
Either way.
That's my understanding.
He did the wonderful Thor Ragnarok, but they had to bring that kind of humor back with Thor. He couldn't just be a bummer again. And they had to do James Gunn's very witty style with it. So the Russo brothers had to almost emulate all those.
Yeah, and that was one of the most well done parts about this movie.
Yes.
Was the fact that they managed to capture the tones of every set of characters, every set of movies, and then wrap them all into one by the end of it. With the only through line being Thanos and his weird cult of kids.
Yes, which I know of from the comics slightly. Those are his followers. And I thought that worked really well. One, it gave some expendable villains that they can fight in this one. Yeah. And two, I actually really liked the kind of culty leader one. I thought he was added some interesting parts to it.
Telekinesis and whatnot.
Yeah,
Mr. Squidward. I will point out, Iron Man made that pop culture reference, and then later criticized Spider-Man for making pop culture references, so...
Plot hole.
Just,
major.
0 out of 10 would not recommend.
Yeah. Going into this, Thanos is a very traditional Silver Age bad guy. He's just a big bad guy. Doesn't have a lot of depth to him, but boy did they add a lot in there, or at least attempted to. They muddied it enough that he's not just a villain of the week. You really feel like he has some ambition.
Thus far, he's been post-credit scene MacGuffin, just always.
Yeah.
That's the only time he appears, really. I mean, aside from 1 or 2 times in various other MCU films. But they did manage to make him a character in this movie with some forced flashbacks that would have been nice if these things had come up previously, but I understand.
A whole bunch of meanwhile back at the ranch.
Yes.
A lot of jumping around in this movie, which makes sense. They're, as you said, Michael, they're pulling all these heroes and hero-nesses together.
It's the problem with making a decade-long franchise of films is you're going to end up...
Which they do all the time.
Yeah, you're going to have to go back and fill in some holes that you... realistically, you just didn't know were there yet.
Yes.
That part of the plot hadn't quite been written yet, and so they had to go, okay, how do we fit this in here? And to be fair, they did it very well.
Yes, and I think one of the major things that they embraced when they made the very first Avengers was they don't need to introduce any new characters. They don't need to sell you on any of these characters. You've seen the movies. You're sold on them. Went the same vein with this, and I think it worked equally as well. They don't need to really advance anything more. You know the dynamics that these characters already have, and they really played those wonderfully. They kept the Spider-Man, Iron Man dynamic going well. They kept the Captain America, Buddy and Winter Soldier going well. It really felt like this was a continuation of all those movies somehow.
Yeah.
So let's get a little more into plotty stuff. So I knew going into this that it's propaganda with Thanos getting all the stones.
Yeah, I mean, it's a...
Yes.
Everyone's known it's been like a two-parter in the making, and that is one of the downfalls of the MCU.
Yes.
Is the fact that they tell you in advance, like, oh, hey, by the way, these are the movies coming out. So you go, okay, well, but now there's not really that much element of surprise.
Yes.
Because you know it's coming.
But, that being said, they cover that really well by kind of making Vision's stone the kind of, like, major plot thread. Of like, okay, if we can just blow up one, we can stop him from getting all the power. They play a little bit with it. Iron Man and Doctor Strange, playing with that, which I thought that angle kind of felt a little flat of like, oh, now I understand sacrifice then versus duty. But whatever, that's being a little slightly nitpicky. But yes, that was smart of them to kind of make you think, maybe they will do this. Maybe they will at least stop him one step short. And arguably they do. As far as their perspective is, they did stop him.
Yeah.
They didn't know he had the time stone. And I like that they built up Thanos with the Gamora storyline. We knew she was his daughter, but they really wanted you to like make that his defining characteristic.
Yeah. Which brings us to a very climactic scene. It was the first really death they lingered on.
Yes.
Like, they didn't linger on, Loki's death at the very beginning or Heimdall's death at the very beginning. They kind of hinted at it earlier on that it might happen. It didn't happen the way you anticipated it, though. Of course, because you're like, oh, Star-Lord's gonna have to shoot her because she brought it up. Like, it's the classic movie problem of now that you've mentioned it.
And, of course, that was another little writing... shortcut they took by, I know something Thanos doesn't know.
Yes.
You have to kill me, plot thread.
There's not much Thanos doesn't know, and we as an audience know that. And so, as soon as she says, I know something Thanos doesn't, I go, oh, there's the Soul Stone. I mean, that's a one problem with formulaic writing of like the MCU is very much, you kind of have to just do things for the sake of the plot.
Right.
And so anyway, going back to the real climactic scene is, of course, they go to get the Soul Stone.
And
a wonderful little cameo almost.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Do you remember me from one of the first movies ever in this franchise?
The Red Skull, Elrond Hugo Weaving himself, is there.
He shows up looking kind of like a Grim Reaper, just kind of floating there like, I'm the guardian of the Soul Stone.
Right, which they say that, like, when he got zapped, he went there, which...
He was... Specifically, he anthropomorphized the stones for a bit there, because he said that... He said that the Tesseract banned him to guard that which he can never acquire.
Right.
Which adds a weird degree of just... consciousness to the
exactly.
Stones?
Which could be interesting, if they play on that. But the scene, Red Skull shows up, reveals to Thanos that, hey, in order to get the Soul Stone, you have to sacrifice a part of yourself, something you love, to it.
And that's where... That was probably the most, the classic example of dramatic irony, where audience knows something you don't know, Gamora, for some reason, didn't realize the answer to that question.
Right.
What is it that Thanos loves? Who is it that Thanos loves?
Surely not me.
And she's like, haha, you love nothing. And
right.
So she said that, you don't love anything in the universe. And I'm like, girl, you know he loves you, right?
Right, which, from her perspective, yes, he doesn't. She has no reason to believe he actually cares about her.
And that was one of the weirdest, most concise bits of characterization in the entirety of the MCU.
So in the comics, the undoing of Thanos is that he has all this power, but he is undone by his own ambition and greed. He literally wants to stick it to death, in the biblical sense. He wants to know her. Death is personified. and Death goes to Thanos and says there's a cosmic imbalance, that there's too many souls in this universe. You need to correct that. I knew in my heart of hearts that was not an element of this movie that they're going to bring into it, so they kind of smushed those two characters into one and just said that like Thanos has this obsession over everything being in balance. Partly because he sees it very it's very like Darwinian. I kind of got that sense of like less people equals more resources to go around.
Yep.
And he uses that as an example with Gamora to be like, hey, I wiped out half your people, but your life wasn't that great.
Yep.
Now your people are prospering. And of course, anyone with a beating heart disagrees with that, but it does characterize him in a slightly interesting way, is that he sees this as very cut and dry.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, like, from a very, like, psychotic point of view, he has a point.
It makes some twisted sense.
It makes some really twisted sense. It's like, hey, these people, it's the classic, it is the Darwinian overpopulation problem. Right. There are too many people, and either they're going to die out because there are too many people, or some people are going to die out and the rest are going to live. And so it's a weird, twisted sense that he makes.
Yes, but I think it ultimately works. The movie doesn't ask you to agree with him. The movie asks you to understand him, and I think you do. I'll give him a bonus point because I think they're going forward this. Otherwise, they're going to do it later. Is Nebula is really important in the comic because she ends up kind of being the one to actually get the gauntlet eventually, and like she's a very tragic figure.
And that'll probably happen in part 2.
You're right, and the scene that I thought they were maybe alluding to was when Thanos was kind of like torturing her, but not just torturing her, but torturing her indefinitely. Yeah. And once he gets one of the stones in the comic, he forces Nebula to die come back and die on loop forever, like infinitely. So she goes crazy because she's just perpetually dying and coming back. So, a couple of things there, but for the most part, it took the really zany elements of the comic, took the core of that, and then based around it, which I thought worked really, really well. How did you feel about the more action-packed scenes?
It was very interesting that they did all kind of match their respective movies in like how they decided to shoot them. Mm-hmm. So, except for I guess the Wakanda action scenes were more.
Oh god, gotta have the big nameless, faceless villain fight.
They had the shooting style of like Civil War and Winter Soldier, where it's a lot of like quick cuts, shaky camera and whatnot. There was a lot of that, and that was, of course, the big, like, there's a bunch of these alien dog creatures that you're just fighting for the sake of having a giant battle.
Right.
The never-before-seen alien that comes in just to create some threat. I did like how they characterized them very quickly, though, where they did, like, what's the character's name from Wakanda, the, like, right-hand lady to...
His sister?
No,
the head bald one?
Yeah, the warrior guardian lady.
Oh, I don't know, but she's awesome.
Oh, yeah, I wish I remember her name.
So many names to remember.
I'm very bad with names. It's always going to be that way. But, she did a wonderful job of, like, instantly characterizing them with her little dialogue where they're, like, trying to break through the barrier, and they're, like, getting chopped in half and whatever.
Yes,
and she's just, like, they're just... I forget exactly how she phrased it.
She words it to like they're killing themselves.
Yeah,
they're
just
throwing themselves at this to kind of like slip in. Yeah. So arguably more characterization than the aliens from the first Avengers, the Chitauri.
Which were just...
Now, given they didn't need characterization, I would argue, but point being is yes, a little bit goes a long way in these movies sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, I thought arguably the more interesting battle scene was when they were all fighting Thanos himself and trying to get the gauntlet off.
On Titan?
Yes.
Yes.
I thought that was a much more Russo brothers style fight of you understand where everyone is in space and time. I never thought I'd say this, but I thought Thor was the main character in these Avengers movies. I was so much more interested in his little story. He got humanized a lot by really like...
It's ironic because he's not human.
Yep, that's put in your quotes. I thought that was clever. But to really have him play off of the other characters, starting out comically, again, so smart that they picked the 2 comic characters
Yep.
and met them first.
Yep.
Really played well.
And to be fair, Thor was not comedic until Ragnarok.
Yep, and you didn't.
But-
It didn't feel like there was this tonal clash at all. But I really, kind of believed in his story. I would argue he has the most dramatic reveal and entrance, when he joins the battle. So I think you kind of they meant for you to sympathize with them.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they always intended that, or if with the success of Thor Ragnarok, they're like, all right, we got to ride this train.
He was one of the few characters left that could have some advancement for the time being. I mean, Spider-Man to a degree, because of course gets the wonderful suit. But he has a lot more in the future to come. Like Thor was one of the characters that we knew a lot about thus far, and still had a place to go. Captain America kind of maxed out.
Yeah,
Iron Man
Cap's
kind of
there.
maxed out.
Yeah,
to a degree. I mean, obviously he gets the nano suit, but still kind of maxed out.
Especially Cap, which really hurts as a Captain America being my favorite hero. He's there.
Mm-hmm.
He's there. He doesn't. They don't want to build him up anymore.
No, I mean, there's not much to build him up. He was injected with steroids, and now he is.
He's perfect.
Yeah.
He's Hitler's wet dream. That being
Also ironic.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's intentional. That was intentional. But so I guess the better thing though is let's talk about the ending. In the scene that very much so is in the comics is ultimately the low point of the comic is Thanos gets all the stones, snaps a finger, ends half of life in an instant. Really well shot. I wanted them to go a bit further if they could have somehow. I know this probably was in the budget, but if they in the comic they do a really good job of showing you all the planets that you've seen throughout comics and seeing half of their population vanish. They wanted to do that. Like you could tell they wanted to really hit home that but they made it smaller and focused on heroes disappearing, which totally fine. But that is the big point in the comic too, is when he finally does what he needs to do.
Good mix of major characters, minor characters getting taken. I think it would definitely lean heavily on the minor characters. But T'Challa.
Yeah, that was
vanishes.
A bigger one. Yeah,
he was probably the biggest one that got poofed.
But
out
not,
of distance.
in my opinion, the most poignant one. To me, that was Mr. Spider-Man.
Oh my goodness! Yes.
Tom Holland, man, when he needs to switch on the like scared, traumatized child card, good lord, does he play it to effect?
When he needs to act, he acts.
He acts. But yes, so that ends on a bummer.
I mean, as it
should, as I expected it to.
But of course, going back to my point at the very beginning of all this, it makes any deaths in the entire movie kind of meaningless. Because if they can undo wiping out half of the universe's population, they can also undo literally any of the other deaths that happen.
Right.
Be it Gamora, be it be it Loki, Heimdall. They can bring back anybody they want to at this point because they've already taken away half of the characters.
It would be very, very impossible for them to end this phase of the Marvel Universe with half the population gone. So, but that creates a mystery of like, how are they going to undo all this?
At this point, it's a plot thing more than anything.
Which I believe in the comics is, I can't remember if it's Nebula or Adam Warlock. I think it's Adam Warlock gets the gauntlet, is kind of like God incarnate, but a more heir to the throne, like a more like good person to do that, and undoes everything. And I believe he wipes everyone's memory of it. I can't remember. Yes, he does. And that's why Thanos becomes a peasant, is because he wipes out. Yeah, okay. So yeah, they could still go that route, very much. Talk about 2 more things. I want to talk about post-credit scene.
Okay,
and where do we go from here?
Yep. All right.
Post-credit scene seems to start by following up where everything left off. You see Nick Fury and Maria Hill driving down the road, making their way downtown, and poof, starts happening. People start disappearing. Which
you don't really know at first. You just see a car veer in front of them, and you're like, okay,
what's going on? No one's there.
And you're like, oh.
Helicopter crashes.
Yeah.
I wanted that scene would have played better in the movie itself. If they had extended that out, that could have been really interesting of just the chaos happening. But either way, they pull over. They start making. They're like, we gotta call a code red, distress calls. Maria Hill vanishes. Samuel L. Mr. Nick Fury starts to feel he's disappearing.
Starts to page someone with a super fancy pager.
Starts to send out a very janky looking pager. Drops it, and Michael, what do we see?
Something I don't recognize because I don't know.
Oh!
I don't know the comics.
Wonderful. Wow, that was the perfect ending to what I thought you were going to alley-oop that. What we see, Michael, is Miss Marvel's colors.
Okay.
Yes.
Very nice. That's
so Miss Brie Larson is hopefully going to be the big character in the next one.
Yeah, when is her movie coming out?
I don't know. It's in between.
It's in between? Okay.
Yes, so she will be introduced. So, very exciting. I mean, we've talked before we even shot this about how hard are they going on Miss Marvel? Is she just going to be she's going to be the start of it all, and that's going to be it? So they're kind of ramping her up now and hyping her up, or is she going to be the Iron Man of this, where she's going to kind of hold it all together?
Yeah.
I don't know that still. They couldn't have picked a better actress to hinge that on if they decide to. Love me some Brie Larson.
Very strong actress.
So, overall, final thoughts, Michael, on Infinity War, and then where do you want to see this go from here?
I would say very strong, of course, very strong performance in terms of the writing, the directing, the acting, all that jazz. It's well-deserving of all the records it's smashing right now, well-deserving of...
Yeah, people understand.
Yeah, your eyes in a theater.
If you have no basis of the Marvel Universe whatsoever, can you just... I'm going to go see this Infinity War movie.
And that's one of the most interesting parts about this is... Sort of.
Really? I thought that was going to be a hard no for you.
So, it's a hard no in terms of characterization. Like, there's obviously, you'll miss a lot of the emotional stuff.
Yes.
But I think what they did very well is... It is pretty standalone... plot-wise,
the setup
it is a self-contained movie in so much as if you wanted to watch this 5 years down the road, you don't have to watch the ones leading up to it.
Yeah.
It is its own story, its own thing. You probably wouldn't just jump into this if you've never seen any Marvel movies, but if you've seen here or there, I don't think you're necessarily required to have watched all of them before seeing it.
I'm going to answer my own question with a no. I think this movie will ultimately fall a little flatter, and I think that's by design. I think that, especially since this is, part one of a two, you need those characters, you need to believe in them, you need to know it, not have be told it. I think it is engaging, to your point, that you won't be disappointed. It's just a lot, the parts and parcel, the meat of it will feel a little darker. So where do we go from here? Do you think, we add some more characters, we add your Miss Marvels in, and then we have a big old fight in the second one? I'm not sure.
I don't even know, honestly.
Thanos won, which is interesting. I thought this was going to end with the battle still raging. And I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad they bookended this with a little bit more of some sort of conclusion. Thanos did his job. He did what he wanted to do.
Yeah. So then the only movie between now and the next one is Captain Marvel, right?
I believe so, yeah.
And so that's really the only movie that will give us any insight into where things are going to go from here. And so it's going to be very interesting.
I'm very curious.
That's going to take place after the ending of this movie, where half the population is wiped out.
Yes. If I'm making a on-the-spot prediction, I think Miss Marvel will do something a la Civil War, where it will be Miss Marvel in name, but it will be a partial continuation of this. Her plot will be around dealing with this.
It definitely has to play with this in some way, because there's no way you can just go into... It's not like the other, independent superhero movies where they just go into it and like, oh yeah, the other Avengers are busy, I guess. Let's just have our adventure.
Right.
This time it's very much... They're going to have to react to this in some way, shape, or form. But in a way they haven't really done yet, aside from, I guess, Civil Wars, where they talk like, oh, you destroyed Sokovia, that, your actions have consequences. It's going to have to somehow play on that again.
And I think that's the right way to go. Yeah. I don't want a origin story in the past and then it ends with her beginning to deal with this. I think that's cheap. I think that's easy. And I don't think that's going to hit the emotion. I want, if you are invested in this movie, ride that momentum, introduce a new exciting character, and just power it up even more.
I think it would be interesting though if it starts slightly in the past, and then at some random point in the movie,
now we're back.
Character disappears. Like a very important character of the plot fizzles out.
Oh,
and it's like right towards the end.
The time. Oh, there you go.
Right towards the end.
You should make this movie.
Yeah, there you go. Write the script. Hire me, people. I don't necessarily want them to just
that could be interesting
for the sake of reveal. I want it to be obviously a self-sustaining film on its own, but it would be great to. That's how she gets pulled into this whole mess. Is that somebody she cared about in the middle of the whole thing?
That's a very unique way that the better of the Marvel movies, the standalones in the newer and the later half of this phase have been doing really well, is making you feel like this takes place in the same universe without beating you over the head with it.
Yeah.
Lots of setup. Do not go to this movie if you're just expecting to see some dumb action. You will get that fix a little bit, but ultimately there is a lot happening in this movie. It's meant to move this up, but I don't think that hinders it at all. So I agree with you, Michael. If you have the money, and good Lord, if you like comics even the slightest, go see this.
Or at least the MCU.
There you go.
Go see it.
You will enjoy this. It's got everything you need in order to enjoy it still feels like a Marvel movie, but it ultimately moves in a very unique way. And I think that's ultimately going to make things exciting. So yeah, that was Infinity War.
Infinity War.
That was Infinity War.
All right. Thank you for watching. If you made it all the way through, obviously that was a bit more than we anticipated, honestly. But thank you for watching. Again, my name is Michael.
I'm Brandon.
If you want to follow us on Twitter, I'm at Voiced Time down there. Brandon is...
I don't have a Twitter. I just wanted to point there like I do.
But yeah, we've been wanting to do this for a while. We'll probably make a separate Twitter for just this thing, so you can follow that. If you like what we did here or want to see where we're going with the next ones, click the subscribe button. There's also a little bell now where it'll notify you when we release the next video. So,
if this goes well, we're going to try to get as much content out as we can.
Yep.
We're going to highlight it to, obviously the big ones like Infinity War that we know everyone's going to be wanting your opinion about, but we want to go to more movies that are doing really, really well that we really enjoy. And we also want to do TV shows too.
Yeah,
none of that's possible.
Yeah. Without you watching and
Yes.
subscribing. So, please do that. We'll get to the TV show stuff later. For now, we'll try and keep it core on the movies, but at some point we would like to branch out and start doing like little smaller reviews of just kind of us talking to a camera about something. That's to come. So thanks for watching. If you want to see that happen, click the subscribe button, click the little bell, and thank you for your support. Leave a comment if you want to engage us in conversation. I'll keep an eye on that and try and reply as quickly as I can.
Yes, please give us feedback as much as you can. Obviously, we're not pros at this either, but we want to get better. We want to make sure we can help you guys out. We got to get started somehow, so please give us feedback, good, bad.
Yep. Let us know what we can do, what we can improve.
Mostly good, please. We have fragile egos. But yes.
Constructive criticism.
But yes, share this around with your friends. Let us know what you think, and hopefully we'll see you on the next drive. Have a good one, guys.